Violence has returned to the streets of Cairo, and now the foreign media is being targeted by the military. Middle East correspondent Ben Knight is in Cairo, and he joins us now. Ben, good morning. What are you hearing and what do you know about the intimidation of foreign journalists and even some ABC members in particular?
Well, Virginia, we're hearing a lot and we know a small amount. What we know is that there has been, over the past 12 to 24 hours, a campaign of harassment against foreign media. Now, it's some of it is rumour. We're talking to other journalists, and some of it is coming through wire reports. What we know is that a number of journalists have been arrested. Some of them have been released. Some of them have been beaten up, and it's a mixture. Some of it has been happening by the pro-Mubarak supporters. Some of it has been happening through the state security forces. Now, I have not had any reports of the state security forces actually beating journalists up, but we do know that they are going to the main media hotels. They are looking for equipment, particularly equipment that is sitting on balconies that are overlooking the main Tahrir Square. Now, this has just been happening during the afternoon and into the evening. Obviously, it seems as though they do not want any cameras pointing at Tahrir Square. Now, the reason for that, possibly because there is this major rally expected tomorrow, possibly major clashes. It's Friday tomorrow. It's Friday prayers. It's the main prayer meeting of the week, and it's the traditional time for any kind of demonstration in this part of the world. Now, today I think we're expecting that there would be a repeat of yesterday's violence and that the square would be cleared out. That didn't happen. There have been clashes all through this afternoon, but in much smaller numbers. Also, we've been hearing gunfire. We assume, but we don't know, that that is from the Egyptian military, some very heavy calibre gunfire, in fact, the sort of thing that you wouldn't find even hidden under a bed in someone's home. So what we do know is that there have been certainly some raids on media hotels. One journalist I spoke to said that he had a knock on the door and 5 to 6 people walked in, headed straight out to the balcony looking for broadcast equipment. A CTV crew, we know, has had the same experience. Its gear was confiscated. And, of course, there's also this campaign of harassment on the street. And it is from the pro-Mubarak supporters. I've spent time within Tahrir Square today with the anti-Mubarak supporters, but the whole time we knew that if we went onto the other side, that we were in danger, as is any other journalist. When we tried to film a pro-Mubarak rally yesterday, even a small one, we were pointed out quickly. 3 people came over and very aggressively threatened us, and that was a pattern throughout the day.
Now, and I'm also just reading here online that American ABC producer Brian Hartman was threatened with beheading by a group of men as he was reporting from Tahrir Square as well. So it's very widely going on. But for those who are still protesting in the square, how dangerous is life for them?
Well, we thought it was going to be very dangerous today indeed. As I said, I walked through the square for about an hour today, in behind the barricades, and what we saw were people who were absolutely exhausted. They were preparing, I think, for what they thought, for what we all expected was going to be yet another assault by the pro-Mubarak forces, because this is what happened yesterday. Up until yesterday, it has largely been a peaceful protest. Of course, we saw those images last Friday. In fact, we were right there in the middle of it when the protesters tried to get to Tahrir Square, but the riot police were in the way. Eventually, of course, the protesters overran them, and what happened is the police disappeared from the streets, and they have not been back since. They've started to appear in the surrounding suburbs, but here in the centre, in the heart of Cairo, there is no law apart from the military, and the military, of course, are not equipped to handle it. So inside the square, it's a remarkable scene. It's some kind of bizarre Woodstock. You have people sleeping in tents, snatching sleep where they can. There are, of course, no bathrooms or anything like that. There are people bringing in constant supplies of food and drink. There's a makeshift medical clinic that's been set up there in a mosque, and there are piles of rocks. And I did talk to the protesters about this. What's this? Are you preparing to throw rocks? And they said, yeah, well, yes, we are, but we are trying to hold a peaceful protest here. If they throw rocks in, we're going to throw rocks back out. But we do want this to be a peaceful protest. Now, this is the hardcore of protesters against the Mubarak government. These are the ones who are holding the very last line and saying, that we are not going to accept anything other than the immediate resignation of Hosni Mubarak. Now, I do not think that they carry the majority of Egyptian opinion with them. I think what most Egyptians would like to see is simply an end to this, and I think there are many who are reasonably happy with what the President had to say just a couple of nights ago in saying that I will not stand again, my son will not stand, we are going to move towards free and fair elections in September. Now, the Vice President has been on television today. He has urged the people to go home, and he has said that, trust us, we are going to make this happen. It's going to take time. We have tried to talk to the opposition parties, but the opposition parties aren't going to speak with us. Now, when you talk to the protesters about that, what they will tell you is that we've heard this before.
Yes.
We've heard this. We think it's stalling. We don't believe it. We think that once the world's media disappears and we get back to normal, the crackdown on the opposition figures is going to be just as bad, if not worse, than it was before, and you are not going to see change, and you are not going to see free and fair elections come September.